about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, What can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. It is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own.
Developing societies.
But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real.
as I stand,
It is also widely shared
where from and
and
how
it can be realized.
country Pakistan, to rehabilitate
That
and
will
reach
surely
my heart
happen
and mind after
when
the
cross-border
rescue and
terrorism
motivation
ceases,
which is still going on.
when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august Assembly to make false accusations against India.
11 million people will be pushed.
He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism. Nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security, and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized.
I think it's high time
that will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared, and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this Assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this August Assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about minority rights, and about basic decencies. When young women in the thousands from the minority community are abducted as an SOP, what can we conclude about the underlying mindset? Mr. President, the desire for peace, security and progress in the Indian subcontinent is real. It is also widely shared and it can be realized. That will surely happen when cross-border terrorism ceases, when governments come clean with the international community and with their own people, when minorities are not persecuted, and, not least, when we recognize these realities before this assembly. President, it is regrettable that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has chosen the platform of this august assembly to make false accusations against India. He has done so to obfuscate misdeeds in his own country and to justify actions against India that the world considers unacceptable. A polity that claims it seeks peace with its neighbors would never sponsor cross-border terrorism, nor would it shelter planners of the horrific Mumbai terrorist attack, disclosing their existence only under pressure from the international community. Such a country would not make unjustified and untenable territorial claims against neighbors. It would not covet their lands and seek to illegally integrate them with its own. But it is not just about the neighborhood that we have heard false claims today. It is about human rights, about
March as the International Day to combat Islamophobia. It's my sincere 40 days and ardent hope that biblical flood poured down on us, smashing centuries of weather records, challenging everything we knew about disaster and how to manage it. Even today, huge swaths of the country are still underwater, submerged in an ocean of human suffering. In this ground zero of climate change, 33 million people, including women and children, are now at high risk from health hazards. With 650,000 women giving birth in makeshift tarpaulins. More than 1,500 of my people have been gone from this world in this great flood, including over 400 children. Far more are in peril from disease and malnutrition. As we speak, millions of climate migrants are still looking for dry land to pitch their tents on, with heartbreaking losses to their families, their futures, and their livelihoods gone for long times to come. Early estimates suggest that more than 13,000 kilometers of metal roads have been damaged, over 370 bridges have been swept away, 1 million homes have been destroyed, and another million damaged. More than 1 million farm animals have been killed. 4 million acres of crops have been washed away, stripping the people of their breadbasket, and damage of an unimaginable scale. Mr. President, Pakistan has never seen a more stark and devastating example of the impact of global warming. Life in Pakistan has changed forever. I have visited personally and spent time in every corner of my devastated country. People in Pakistan ask, why? Why has this happened to them? When global warming rips apart whole families and an entire country at this ferocious speed, it is time to ask why, and time to ask not what can be done, but what must be done. The undeniable truth is that this calamity has not been triggered by anything we have done. Our glaciers are melting fast, our forests are burning, and our heat waves have crossed 53 degrees Celsius, making us the hottest place on the planet. And now, Mr. President, now we live through an unprecedented monster monsoon. It is literally a monsoon on steroids, as the UN Secretary General described it most befittingly. It is on steroids. One thing is very clear. What happened in Pakistan will not stay in Pakistan. As the Secretary General so candidly says, hotspots like Pakistan fall in the 10 most climate vulnerable list of countries, but emit less than 1% of the greenhouse gases that are burning our planet. It is therefore entirely reasonable to expect some approximation of justice for this loss and damage, not to mention building back better with resilience and strength. Clearly, the time for talk about action has passed. At this point, I am profoundly grateful that the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited Pakistan, where he spent time with climate refugees, with mothers and children in the tents, and repeatedly assured us of his support and assistance. At this point, I want to thank each and every one of the countries that have sent help to Pakistan and their representatives to Pakistan to stand in solidarity with us in our most trying hour. On behalf of my nation, I once again express my sincerest appreciation to all of them. Excellencies, the impacts on the health and wealth of my country are beyond calculation at this point. So my real worry is about the next stage of this challenge, when the cameras would have gone or left this August Assembly and the story just shifts away to conflicts like the Ukraine. My question is, will we be left alone, high and dry, to cope with a crisis which we did not create, not of our doing? Where from and how to begin with? to rehabilitate and reconstruct after the rescue and relief effort, which is still going on for 12 long weeks. For many of the lives we have saved, the future is dimmed by new fragility, lost homes, decimated livelihoods, deluged croplands, permanent food insecurity, and exposure to uncertain futures. Some 11 million people will be pushed further below the poverty line, while others will drift to cramped urban shelters, leaving little room for climate-smart rebuilding. Mr. President, for now, we have mobilized all available resources at our domain, squeezing resources from left and right towards the national relief effort, and repurposed all budget priorities, including development funds, to the rescue and first-order needs of millions, cash transfers to the most affected 4 million women, heads of household, had begun weeks ago via our Social Security program, the Benazir Income Support Program. It has been established in the name of former late Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, and her son is our foreign minister today. 70 billion rupees, or almost $300 million from our own pocket we are spending on this program. But at this point, the gap between our urgent needs and available resources is increasing by the day and amplified by the sheer unprecedented scale of this disaster. Our manpower and resources are totally overwhelmed and overstretched. The question to raise here is quite simple. Why are my people paying the price of such high global warming through no fault of ours? We have no contribution in this. Nature has unleashed her fury on Pakistan without looking at our carbon footprint, which is next to nothing. Our actions did not contribute to this. The dual cost of global inaction and climate injustice are having a crippling effect on both our treasury and our people, right here, right now, over there. Mr. President, this is going to be a long haul, and under these most trying circumstances, hope is the best enemy of darkness. And Pakistanis are known to be exceptionally resilient people. For my part, I am fully committed, fully geared to fighting this battle for our survival in the tents, in the trenches with my people until we have rebuilt Pakistan to face the growing challenges of this century. It is high time we took a pause from the preoccupations of the 20th century to return to the challenges of the 21st century. The entire definition of national security has changed today, and unless the leaders of the world come together to act and act now on an agreed common agenda, there will be no earth to fight wars over. Nature will be fighting back, and for that, humanity is no match at all. Mr. President, Pakistan's urgent priority right now is to ensure a rapid economic growth and lift millions out of poverty and hunger. To enable any such policy momentum, Pakistan needs a stable external environment. We look for peace with all our neighbors, including India. Sustainable peace and stability in South Asia, however, remains contingent upon a just and lasting solution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. At the heart of this long-standing dispute lies the denial of the inalienable right of the Kashmiri people to self-determination, India's illegal and unilateral actions of 5th August 2019 to change the internationally recognized disputed status of Jammu and Kashmir and to alter the demographic structure of the occupied territory further undermined the prospects of peace and inflamed regional tensions. India's ruthless campaign of repression against Kashmiris has continued to grow in scale and intensity. In pursuit of this heinous goal, New Delhi has ramped up its military deployments in occupied Jammu and Kashmir to 900,000 troops, thus making it the most militarized zone in the world. The serial brutalization of Kashmiris takes many forms: extrajudicial killings, incarceration, custodial torture and death, indiscriminate use of force, deliberate targeting of Kashmiri youth with pellet guns, and collective punishments imposed on entire communities. In a classic settler colonial project, India is seeking to turn the Muslim-majority Jammu and Kashmir into a Hindu territory through illegal demographic changes. Millions of fake domicile certificates have been issued to non-Kashmiris. Kashmiri land and properties are being seized. Electoral districts have been gerrymandered, and over 2.5 million non-Kashmiri illegal voters fraudulently registered. All this is in blatant violation of Security Council's resolutions and international law, particularly the 4th Geneva Convention. For our part, the Pakistani people have always stood by our Kashmiri brothers and sisters in complete solidarity and will continue to do so, no matter what, until their right to self-determination is fully realized in accordance with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. I assure the World Forum and this August platform that we in Pakistan remain consistent in our commitment to peace in South Asia. India must take credible steps to create enabling environment for constructive engagement. We are neighbors and we are there forever. The choice is ours, whether we live in peace or keep on fighting with each other. We have had 3 wars from 1947 onwards, and as a consequence, only miseries, poverty, unemployment increase on both sides. It's now up to us to resolve our differences, our problems, our issues, like peaceful neighbors through peaceful negotiations and discussions, and save our scarce resources for promoting education and health and employment to millions of people, young boys and girls on both sides of the divide, and not waste our resources in buying more ammunition and trying to promote tension in this area. I think it's high time that India understands this message loud and clear, that both countries are armed to the teeth. War is not an option. It is not an option. It is not an option. Only peaceful dialogue can resolve these issues so that the world become more peaceful in times to come. Mr. President, Afghanistan today presents a unique challenge. 30 million Afghans are left without a functional economy. And banking system that allows ordinary Afghans to make a living, to be able to build a better future. Pakistan would also like to see Afghanistan, which is at peace with itself and the world, and which respects and nurtures all its citizens without regard to gender, ethnicity, and religion. Pakistan is working to encourage respect for the rights of Afghan girls and women to education and work. Yet, at this point, isolating the Afghan interim government could aggravate the suffering of the Afghan people who are already destitute. Constructive engagement and economic support are more likely to secure a positive response. A peaceful, prosperous, and connected Afghanistan in our collective interest. As a neighbor, Pakistan has a vital stake in peace and stability in Afghanistan. We have led the humanitarian efforts to help our Afghan brothers and sisters. We must avoid another civil war, rising terrorism, drug trafficking, or new refugees, which none of Afghanistan's neighbors are in a position to accommodate. Pakistan urges the international community to respond in a positive way to the UN Secretary General's appeal for $4.2 billion in humanitarian and economic assistance to Afghanistan. Release Afghanistan's financial reserves, essential to revive its banking system. Pakistan shares the key concern of the international community regarding the threat posed by the major terrorist groups operating from Afghanistan, especially ISIL-K and Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, as well as Al-Qaeda, ETIM, and IMU. They all need to be dealt with effectively and comprehensively with the support and cooperation of the interim Afghan authorities. In turn, the international community should address Afghanistan's dire humanitarian needs. Mr. President, Pakistan strongly condemns terrorism in all its forms and shades and manifestations. Terrorism does not have a religion, ladies and gentlemen. It is based on dogma, fueled by poverty, unemployment, deprivation, injustice, and ignorance, and fanned by vested interests. Pakistan is the principal victim of terrorism. Over the last 2 decades, we have suffered more than 80,000 casualties and over $150 billion in economic losses due to terrorist attack. Our armed forces, with the support of our people, mothers, traders, students, teachers, engineers, doctors, have broken the back of terrorism within Pakistan, yet we continue to suffer terrorist attacks from across our borders, sponsored and financed by our regional adversary. We are determined to defeat such cross-border terrorism. And I must say loud and clear that the amount of sacrifices Pakistan has made to defeat terrorism over the period of time has been unprecedented in the contemporary history of Pakistan. I tell often to my friends, if you see somebody, a mother or a child or a boy limping on the streets of Pakistan, maybe he was a victim of terrorists years back. That is the kind of sacrifice Pakistan has paid. Our generals, our soldiers, our doctors, mothers, teachers, students, and traders, they all paid their lives for Pakistan's well-being and defeated terrorism. And this peace which was restored back in Pakistan after great sacrifices is not only for Pakistan, it is a peace for global countries and global community. And we are very proud of it. And this is the biggest manifestation of our commitment, our concern, and our continued efforts to defeat terrorism wherever it is. Mr. President, Islamophobia is a global phenomenon. Since 9/11, suspicion and fear of Muslims and discrimination against them have escalated to epidemic proportions. The officially sponsored campaign of oppression against India's over 200 million Muslims is the worst manifestation of Islamophobia. They are subjected to discriminatory laws and policies, hijab bans, attacks on mosques, and lynchings by Hindu mobs. I am particularly concerned by the calls for genocide against India's Muslims by some extremist groups. Earlier this year, this Assembly adopted a landmark resolution introduced by Pakistan on behalf of the OIC, designating 15th March as the International Day to combat Islamophobia. It's my sincere and ardent hope that this should lead to concrete measures by the UN and member states to combat Islamophobia and promote interfaith harmony. Mr. President, Pakistan is deeply concerned by the numerous conflicts across the Middle East, including in Syria and Yemen. We support all possible efforts to promote their peaceful resolutions. We call on Israel to put an immediate end to the blatant use of force and flagrant violations of human rights of the Palestinian people and the repeated desecration of the Holy Al-Aqsa Mosque. The only just, comprehensive, and lasting solution of the Palestinian question is the acceptance of a viable, independent, and contiguous Palestinian state with the pre-1967 borders and Al-Quds Al-Sharif as its capital. Mr. President, the Security Council and the General Assembly must be empowered to play their respective roles under the UN Charter. The Security Council must be expanded by adding 11 new non-permanent members to make it more representative, democratic, transparent, effective, and accountable. Adding new permanent members will paralyze the Council's decision-making, enlarge its representational deficit, and create new centers of privilege in violation of principle of sovereign equality of member states. The nations of the world must step back from the precipice. We must restore peace in Europe, avoid a war in Asia, and resolve festering conflicts across the world. We must revive the vision which created the United Nations, a vision which is often blurred by national interest and hegemonic designs. Pakistan is a partner for peace. But, Mr. President, peace can only be ensured and guaranteed when rights of communities who have been suffering over decades and subjugated over decades get their freedom, earn their freedom, and are respected. In this behalf, before I conclude, Mr. President, I would once again repeat at the cost of repetition that we want to have peace with India, but long-lasting, enduring peace can only be ensured and guaranteed through a just and fair solution of Kashmir, providing rights to the people of Kashmir under UN Charter, according to Security Council resolutions, the right of self-determination, and I will be most forthcoming to sit down then and talk to our Indian counterparts to pave the way forward for future so that our generations do not suffer, so that we spend our resources on mitigating miseries, on building structures to face these floods and outbursts of clouds. We are developing societies. We don't have unlimited resources. We must deploy our resources for the well-being of the people, for our children, for their promotion, for their empowerment, for their employment, for health, for education, and make Pakistan, and of course other developing societies must find their own place in community of nations through hard work, untiring effort,
I have great pleasure in welcoming
that is the
His
only way
Excellency
forward.
Mohammad
Therefore,
Shehbaz
we will
Sharif,
work with all those
Prime
committed
Minister of the
to the
Islamic
United
Republic
Charter's
of
principles
Pakistan.
to restore the vision which created the United Nations and to equip this organization with the capacity to preserve global peace and promote universal prosperity. I thank you. لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort New Zealand for the statement just made.
As I stand here today to tell the story of my country, Pakistan, my heart and mind
the Assembly
have
will
not
now
been able
hear
to
an
leave
address by
home.
His Excellency
Standing
Mohammad
here, I still
Shehbaz
feel
Sharif,
that I
Prime
am
Minister of
visiting
the Islamic Republic
one
of
of the
Pakistan.
flood
I request
affected
protocol
areas
to escort His
of
Excellency.
Sindh and Balochistan of my country. No words can describe the shock
I have great pleasure
we are
in
living
welcoming
through,
His
or how the
Excellency
face of the country
Mohammad Shehbaz
lies
Sharif, Prime
transformed.
Minister of the Islamic
I
Republic
have
of Pakistan.
come
I
to
invite him to
explain
address the Assembly.
firsthand the scale and magnitude of this climate catastrophe that has pushed 1/3 of my country underwater in a superstorm that no one has seen in one's living memory. For 40 days and 40 nights, a biblical flood poured down on us, smashing centuries of weather records. As I stand here today to tell the story of my we knew about country Pakistan and how my heart and mind even today have not been able to leave huge home. Swaths of the country standing here are still underwater that I am submerged in an ocean of flood human suffering areas of Sindh and this ground zero of climate change. 33 million words can describe the shock, including women we are living through, or how now at high risk from health transformed. I have 650,000 women firsthand giving birth, the scale and magnitude of this climate catastrophe. More than 1,500 of my 1/3 of my country underwater from this world in a superstorm in this great flood that no one has seen. Over 400 million living over 400 children. Far more for 40 days and 40 nights from disease and malnutrition. Flood poured down on us. Millions of climate smashing centuries of our weather looking for dry land, challenging to pitch their tents on. We knew heartbreaking loss, disaster to their families, how to manage it. Their future today and their livelihoods, swaths of the country gone for long time still underwater. Early estimates suggest an ocean of that more human than 13,000 kilometers of metal roads, zero of climate change, have been damaged. 33 million over 370 bridges, including women, have been swept away. Children, a million at high risk have been destroyed, and another million with damage. 650,000, more than a million farm giving birth have been killed. 4 million acres of crop, more than 1,500 of my stripping the people of their bread basket from this world and damage in this great flood unimaginable, including scale. Over 400 million, over 400 children. Pakistan far more are in peril from disease and malnutrition. Example as we speak of the impact millions of global climate warming. Migrants, life in Pakistan still looking for dry land forever. To pitch their tents on. I have visited personally heartbreaking loss and spent time to their families in every corner. Their futures my devastated and their livelihoods gone for people long in Pakistan ask. Early estimates suggest why has more than 13,000 of them Kilometers of metal roads have been damaged, whole families. Over 370 bridges entire country have been swept away at this ferocious speed. 1 million homes, it is time to have been destroyed. Why? And another million to ask not damaged. What can be done? More than 1 million farm animals have been killed. The undeniable 4 million acres of that this calamity has not been washed away, triggered, stripping the people of their we have basket. Our glaciers are melting fast, unimaginable. Our forests are burning, and our heat waves. Pakistan 53 has never seen degrees Celsius are most dark, making us and devastating the hottest example on the planet of the impact of global and now warming. Mr. President, life in Pakistan now we live through changed forever. Unprecedented. I have monster monsoon and spent time literally in a monsoon corner of my devastated country. As the UN Secretary General people in Pakistan most ask befittingly why it is on steroids. Why has this happened? One thing is very clear. Them. What happened global warming rips apart not stay whole family in Pakistan and an entire country. As the Secretary General at this so candidly says, it's time to ask like why? Pakistan and time fall to ask not in the 10 most what can be done vulnerable but list of countries must be done. But amid less than undeniable truth is of the greenhouse has not gases triggered that are burning by anything our planet. We have done. Therefore, entirely our glaciers are melting fast. Some are forest approximation of justice and our heat waves for this loss have crossed and damage. 53, not to mention degrees Celsius, building back the hottest with place on the planet and now. Mr. Clearly, the time for talk about now we live through past. And at this unprecedented, I am profoundly grateful monsoon that the UN Secretary Antonio Guterres visited Pakistan, where he spent as the time with Secretary described it with mothers and children. It is in the tents on steroids and repeatedly assured us very clear of his support. And what happened in Pakistan at this point will not stay. I want to thank in Pakistan each and every as one of the countries so that candidly says help Pakistan like and Pakistan their representatives for Pakistan in the 10 most to stand in solidarity vulnerable with us of countries in our most but amid less than 1% of my nation of the greenhouse gases my that are burning appreciation our planet to all of them. It is therefore entirely reasonable to expect impacts on the health some and approximation of my country justice are for beyond calculation and damage at this point. Not to mention building back. So my real worry is better about the next stage of this challenge. Strength. When the clearly the time for talk about would have gone. Action is past. At this point, or I am profoundly grateful. This that the UN Assembly Antonio and the story just shift away to conflicts where is spent like the Ukraine time with climate refugees, with mothers and children in the tents, and repeatedly assured us to cope with the crisis. And we did not create. At this point, not of our I want to thank each and every where from and how to begin with that have to rehabilitate, help to Pakistan, and reconstruct, and their after the rescue and relief effort to Pakistan, which is still going on, stand in solidarity for 12 long weeks in our most for many of the lives we have on behalf of my the nation is dimmed. I once again new fragility, my sincerest appreciation decimated to all of them livelihoods, excellencies, deluged. The impacts on the health, permanent and wealth food of my country and exposure are beyond calculation, uncertain at this point. Futures. Some 11 million people will be pushed next stage further below the poverty line, while the cameras will drift to cramped urban shelters, leaving little room for climate smart rebuilding. August Assembly and the story just we have mobilized to conflicts all like available resources at our domains will be squeezing left alone resources from left and right toward the national relief effort create and repurposed all budget priorities including where from and how developing funds to the rehabilitate first order needs of millions rescue and relief effort cash transfer which is still going on to the most affected for 4 million weeks, women for many heads of the household we have begun weeks ago. The future is dim by our fragility, social security program, lost homes, the decimated income, livelihood program, deluge. It has been established in the name of food, former late Prime Minister and exposure to uncertain and future. Her son, some 11 million people will be pushed further below the poverty 70 line, billion rupees, while others will drift or almost $300 million shelters from our own pocket. Little room for spending on this program. Smart rebuilding. But at this point, Mr. President, the gap between our urgent needs, we have mobilized and available resources, all available is increasing by the day, domain, and amplified by the sheer unprecedented left and right of this disaster towards the national our manpower, relief effort, and resources, and are repurposed all budget priorities, including the question to development funds is quite to the rescue and first why are needs my people of millions paying the price cash of transfers high global the most warming through 4 million fault of ours. Women heads of household in this had begun nature has unleashed via our fury our Pakistan security program without looking at our carbon program, which is next to nothing established. Our action in the name of did not contribute Prime Minister Benazir. The dual cost of global inaction and climate injustice are having a crippling effect on both our treasury 70 billion rupees right here, right now, almost $300 million from our own pocket. We have Mr. President spending on this program. This is going to be a long haul. But at this point, the gap between our urgent needs, most trying available resources, hope is the best increasing by the enemy of darkness and amplified by the sheer unprecedented Pakistanis are scale of this disaster. Exceptionally, our manpower, people and resources. For my part, I am fully committed, fully geared to fighting this battle for our survival. In the tents, quite simple. In the trenches, why with my people, until we have rebuilt paying the price of such to face the growing challenges warming through century. No fault of ours. It is high time we have no contribution in this. From the preoccupation, nature has unleashed her fury on Pakistan to return without to the challenges looking of the 21st at our carbon footprint. The entire definition of next to nothing national security. Our actions has changed today. Contribute to this. The dual cost of global inaction, the leaders of the world come together, are having a crippling effect on both our treasury and our common agenda. Right here, there will be no earth over there to fight wars over. Nature will be fighting Mr. President back. This is going to be a long haul. Humanity is no match at all. Most trying circumstances, hope is the best President, enemy of darkness. Pakistan's urgent priority, and Pakistanis are known to be exceptionally rapid, resilient growth people. And for my part, I am fully committed, fully geared and hunger to fighting to enable for our survival momentum in the tents, Pakistan in the trenches with my people until we have rebuilt Pakistan to face the growing challenges including India. It is high time we took a pause and stability from the preoccupation of, however, the 20th century, contingent to return to the challenges of the 21st and lasting solution. The entire definition of national security at the heart of this today long-standing dispute lies the denial of the unless the leaders of the world come together to self-determination and act now India's on an agreed legal common and agenda unilateral there will be no earth to fight wars over. Nature will be fighting internationally and recognized humanity is no match at all. Jammu and Kashmir, and to alter the demographic structure, Mr. President, occupied territory further undermines Pakistan's urgent priority. Peace right now inflamed is to regional tensions, rapid economic India's ruthless campaign of repression, poverty and hunger. Kashmiris has continued to grow policy momentum in scale. Pakistan needs a stable external of this environment. Heinous goal for peace. New Delhi has ramped up neighbors military deployment India in occupied Jammu and Kashmir and stability to 900,000 troops. Thus, however, it remains the most contingent upon the most militarized zone in the world. Lasting solution. The serial Jammu and brutalization of Kashmiris at the heart of this forms long-standing judicial killing lies the incarceration in inalienable torture and death people indiscriminate determination of force India's targeting of Kashmiri youth and unilateral pellet guns of 5th and August collective 2019 punishments imposed on entire communities. Internationally recognized classic disputed status of colonial Jammu and Kashmir. India is seeking to alter, to turn the Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir occupied into a Hindu further undermined through the illegal demographic and changes. Millions of fake tensions, domicile certificates have been campaign of non-Kashmiris against Kashmiri land. Kashmiris has continued to grow in scale, electoral intensity, have been in gerrymandered. And over 2.5 million, New Delhi has ramped up its non-military deployments in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, fraudulently 900,000 troops. All this is thus making a blatant violation of Security Council's militarization zone in the world, international law. The serial brutalization of Kashmiri Geneva Convention takes many forms. For our part, the Pakistani people have always stood by our Kashmiri brothers, torture and death in complete indiscriminate use of force, deliberate targeting of Kashmiri youth, no matter what, until their right collective self-determination imposed on the entire community in accordance with the relevant classic UN Security Council colonial resolutions. India is seeking the World Forum to turn the Muslim majority and this Jammu and Kashmir into a Hindu Pakistan territory. Remain consistent illegal demographic commitment changes in millions of fake domicile credible steps have been issued to create to non-enabling environment. Kashmiri land and property engagement are being seized. We are neighbors. Electoral districts and we are therefore have been gerrymandered. The choice is ours. Over 2.5 million we live in peace, non-Kashmiri illegal each other. We have had voters 3 wars fraudulently registered from 1947 onwards in blatant violation of as a consequence Security Council's resolutions, only miseries, international law, poverty, unemployment, particularly the 4th Geneva Convention increase on both sides. For our part, it's now the Pakistani people have resolved our by our Kashmiri brothers differences in complete our problems and will continue to do so, no matter what, until their right to self-determination is fully realized in accordance with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. I assure the World Forum promoting education and health platform and we in Pakistan employment remain consistent. Millions of people to peace, young and boys and girls on both sides. India must take credible steps and not create waste our resources environment in for buying more engagement. And we are neighbors trying to, and we are there forever, promote tension. The choice is ours. I think it's high time we live in peace India or understand this message each other loud and clear. We have had 3 wars. Both countries from 1947 on to the teeth. And war is not an option. As a consequence, it is not an option. Only miseries, only poverty and unemployment can resolve these issues so that the world become more peaceful in time to come. To resolve our differences, Mr. President, our problems, Afghanistan today, our issues presents a unique challenge. Like 30 million neighbors, Afghans are left without a functional economy. And save our scarce resources and banking system promoting education and ordinary Afghans and employment to make a living, to be able to millions of people better future. Young boys and girls on Pakistan both sides of also like to see and Afghanistan not waste our resources which is at in buying more ammunition, peace with itself and the world, trying to and which promote tension in this area. All its high time without that regard India to gender, understand ethnicity and religion loud and clear. Pakistan is working to both countries respect for the rights of armed girls and war is not an option. To education and it is not an option. Yet it is not an option. At this point, only peaceful dialogue. At this point, can resolve the Afghan interim government. The world become more peaceful. The suffering of the Afghan people who are already destitute. Constructive engagement, Afghanistan and economic support are more likely to secure a 30 million Afghans are peaceful without us and functional Afghanistan in our collective interest. As a neighbor, Pakistan is a vital stake banking system in peace and stability allows Afghanistan. Ordinary Afghans. We have led the humanitarian efforts to make a living, to be able to build brothers and sisters a better future. We must avoid Pakistan would also like to rising terrorism, Afghanistan, trafficking, which is at new refugees, which none of Afghanistan and the world are in a position to accommodate and nurtures. Pakistan all its citizens without the international regard to gender, to ethnicity and religion. In a positive way. Pakistan is working to encourage respect for the rights of Afghan girls $1 billion to education and work, and yet it is this point to Afghanistan. At this point, isolating the Afghan financial reserves could aggravate to revive the suffering of the Afghan people, who are already the key concern of the international community. And regarding this threat, are more likely to secure terrorist groups a positive response operating from Afghanistan, a peaceful, prosperous, and connected Afghanistan, and our Taliban Pakistan as a neighbor, Pakistan has a vital stake in peace and stability in Afghanistan. They all need to be dealt with humanitarian effectively and comprehensively. Help our Afghan brothers and sisters. The support and cooperation we must avoid the interim Afghan authorities. Arising in turn, the international community should address refugees, Afghanistan, which none of Afghanistan's neighbors are in a position to accommodate. Pakistan urges strongly the international community terrorism in all respond in a positive way and manifest the UN Secretary General's terrorism does not have a religion. $4.2 billion in humanitarian dogma and economic fueled by poverty, unemployment, deprivation, Afghanistan's and financial reserves and fanned essential by to revive its banking system. Pakistan shares the key concern of the international community decades regarding the threat posed by the major terrorist groups and operating from $150 billion in economic losses due to terrorist attack. Taliban Pakistan, our armed as well as Al-Qaeda, with the support of our people, IMU, mothers, they all need to be dealt with. Students, effectively and comprehensively, have broken the back of terrorism of the interim Afghan authorities. Yet, in turn, continue to suffer international community should address from across our borders, sponsored and financed by our regional adversary. Mr. President, we are determined to defeat Pakistan strongly condemns, and I must say, terrorism loud and clear, its forms and shades, the amount of sacrifices Pakistan has made does not have a religion. Terrorism over the period of time, it is based on dogma, fueled by poverty, unemployment, contemporary history of Pakistan, injustice, and ignorance. I tell often to my friends, if you see somebody, Pakistan, a mother, or a child, victim of terrorism, limping over the last 2 decades. Maybe he have suffered more than he was a victim of 80,000 casualties years back and over. That's the kind of sacrifice $1 billion in economic losses. Our generals due to terrorist soldiers, attack. Our doctors, mothers, teachers, our armed forces and traders. They all paid our people, their lives, mothers, for traders, Pakistan's students, teachers, and engineers, doctors, and this have broken the back of terrorism back in Pakistan, within Pakistan. After great sacrifices, it's not only for Pakistan, terrorist attacks from across our borders, sponsored and financed by our regional adversaries. We are very proud of it. We are determined to defeat the biggest manifestation of our commitment. I must say, our concern loud and clear, and our continued the amount of sacrifices defeat terrorism has made wherever it is. To defeat terrorism over the period of time, Mr. President, Islamophobia is a global, unprecedented in the contemporary history of Pakistan. Suspicion and fear of Muslims. I tell often to my friends, discrimination against them have a mother or a child epidemic proportions. On the streets of Pakistan, maybe campaign he was a victim of against India's years over 200 million Muslims. The kind of sacrifice is the worst manifestation of Islamophobia. Generals. They are subject to mothers, discriminatory laws and policies. And hijab bans. They all paid their attacks on mosques for Pakistan and lynchings by well-being, Hindu mob, and defeated terrorism. I am particularly concerned peace which was by the calls back for genocide after great sacrifices. Muslims is not only for Pakistan, extremist groups. It is a peace earlier this year. Global, this assembly countries adopted a landmark resolution, and we are very proud of Pakistan. And this is on behalf of the OIC of our commitment, designating our 15th March and our as the International Day to combat defeat terrorism wherever it is. My sincere an ardent hope, Mr. President, that Islamophobia lead to concrete measures by the UN and member states suspicion to combat and fear of Muslims and promote discrimination against harmony have escalated to epidemics deeply concerned by the numerous conflict-sponsored campaigns across the Middle East against India's in Syria and Yemen. Million Muslims we support the worst manifestation efforts of Islamophobia. Their peaceful resolution. They are subjected to we call on Israeli laws and policies, immediate and hijab ban, blatant use of force, attacks and flagrant violations and lynchings by human rights, Hindu mobs of the Palestinian people. I am particularly concerned by the desecration for genocide of the holy against India's Muslims. The only just extremist comprehensive earlier this year and lasting solution assembly of the Palestinian landmark resolution is the acceptance introduced by Pakistan viable on behalf of the OIC and designating 15th March as the International Day with the to combat pre-Islamophobia. 1967 my sincere and ardent hope Al-Sharif that this should lead to concrete measures by the UN Council and member states and the General Assembly to combat Islamophobia must be empowered and promote interfaith harm roles under the UN Charter. Pakistan's Security Council must by the numerous conflicts by adding across the Middle East non-permanent members to make Syria and more representative. We support democratic, transparent, to promote their peaceful and accountable. We call adding on new permanent to members will paralyze the Council's decision-making, flagrant and large violations of representational deficit of the Palestinians and create new centers of privilege in violation of the principle of sovereign equality. The only just comprehensions of the world lasting must step back from the precipice is the we must restore peace of a viable Europe, independent, avoid a war in Asia, contagious, resolve festering conflicts across the world. We must revive the vision which created the United Nations and Al-Quds, a vision Al-Sharif is often blurred by national interest, Mr. President, hegemonic Security Council and the General Assembly is a partner must be empowered to play, but Mr. the respective roles peace under the UN Charter only be ensured and guaranteed. Must be expanded rights by adding of communities, non-permanent members to make it over decades more representative and subjugated, democratic, transparent, effective freedom and accountable, and are adding new permanent in this behalf will paralyze the Council's decision-making. I would once again enlarge its representational deficit and create we want to have centers of privilege with India in violation of principle of long-lasting equality. Enduring member states can only be ensured and guaranteed the world through a just step back and fair from the precipice. Solution we must restore Kashmir peace in Europe, avoid a war in Asia to the people of and resolve festering conflicts across the world. Security Council revive resolution the vision which created the United Nations determination, a vision and I will often blurred by national interest forthcoming hegemonic to sit down designs and talk Pakistan are Indian counterparts to but Mr. Pave the way forward for future and only so that our generations and guaranteed do not suffer so that we spend our resources who have been suffering on mitigating miseries and on building structures get their face freedom, these earn their freedom and outbursts and are respected. We are in this behalf developing societies. Before I conclude, have Mr. Unlimited resources. I would once again deploy our resources at the cost for the well-being of the people, that we want to have children, peace with India, for their empowerment, for their long-lasting, for health, peace, for education, can only be ensured and guaranteed. And of course, other developing societies must solution of find their own providing of a nation through hard work to the untiring efforts and sacrifice. Under UN Charter, that is the only way forward. Security Council, we will work with all those committed the right of United Charter determination and I will the vision which created the United Nations forthcoming and to equip to sit down then with the capacity to preserve our Indian counterparts and promote to universal prosperity. Pave the way forward for future so that our generations do not suffer, so that we spend our resources
I wish to
on
thank the Prime Minister
miseries,
of the Islamic
on
Republic
building
of
structures
Pakistan for the statement just made,
face these
and I request
floods
protocol
and
to
outbursts
escort
of clouds.
New
We are
Zealand
developing
for the statement just
societies.
made.
We don't have
And I request
unlimited
protocol
resources.
to escort
We must
Her
deploy our
Excellency.
resources for the well-being of the
Ассамблея
people,
заслушает
for our
выступление
children, for their
The
promotion,
Assembly will
for their
now hear an
empowerment,
address by
for
His
their employment,
Excellency
for health,
Mohammed
for education,
Shehbaz Sharif,
and
Prime Minister
make
of the Islamic
Pakistan,
Republic of
and of
Pakistan.
course other
I
well-being
request
societies
protocol
must
to escort His Excellency.
find their own place in community of nations through hard work, untiring effort, and
I have
sacrifice.
great pleasure
That is
in
the only
welcoming
way forward.
His Excellency
Therefore, we will
Mohammed
work with all
Shehbaz
those
Sharif,
committed
Prime
to the
Minister
United
of the
Charter's
Islamic
principles
Republic of
to restore
Pakistan.
the vision
I invite him
which
to address the
created the
Assembly.
United Nations and to equip this organization with the capacity to preserve global peace and promote universal prosperity. I thank you.
От имени Ассамблеи
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort New Zealand for the statement just made. And I request protocol
As I
to
stand
escort
here
Her
today
Excellency.
to tell the story of my
Ассамблея
country,
заслушает
Pakistan,
выступление премьера.
my heart and
Assembly
mind
will now hear an
have
address
not been
by
able
His
to leave home.
Excellency Mohammed
Standing
Shehbaz
here, I
Sharif,
still feel
Prime Minister of the
that I
Islamic
am
Republic
visiting
of Pakistan.
one of the
I request protocol to
flood-affected
escort His
areas
Excellency.
of Sindh and Balochistan of my country.
Я с большим удовольствием
No words can
I
describe
have
the
great
shock
pleasure in welcoming
we are living
His
through,
Excellency
or how the
Mohammed
face of the
Shehbaz
country
Sharif,
lies
Prime Minister of the
transformed.
Islamic Republic of
I
Pakistan.
have
I invite him to address
come
the
to
Assembly.
explain firsthand the scale and magnitude of this climate catastrophe that has pushed 1/3 of my country underwater in a superstorm that no one has seen in one's living memory. For 40 days and 40 nights, Excellencies, a biblical flood poured down on us, smashing centuries of weather records. As I stand challenging here today everything, the story of my we country, knew about Pakistan disaster, my heart and mind how to manage it have not been able to leave home. Huge swaths of the country here I still feel are still underwater, visiting, submerged in an ocean of human suffering of Sindh and Balochistan. In this ground of my country, zero of climate change, no words can describe million the shock, people, including women and children, how the face of the country now at high risk lies from health hazards. I have come to explain first-hand women the scale and magnitude in makeshift of this climate catastrophe that has more than 1/5 of my country people have been underwater, gone in a from this world, in this that great no one has seen, including in over 400 million, over 400 children. For 40 days and 40 are nights in peril from disease and malnutrition down as we speak. Millions of centuries of migrants, weather records, are still looking for dry land, everything to pitch their tents on. We knew about with heartbreaking losses and how to their families. Even today, their futures, huge swaths of the livelihoods, are still under long times to come. Submerged. Early estimates suggest human suffering more than 13,000 in this ground kilometers of zero climate change have been damaged. 33 million people, over 370 villages and children have been swept away, are now at high risk. Homes from health have been destroyed, and another million, 650,000 women, more than a million giving birth, farm animals in makeshift have been killed. 4 million acres of more than crops, 1,500 have been washed away. People have been stripping the people of their gone from this basket and damaged flood of an unimaginable over scale. 400 million, over 400 children. Pakistan are in peril. Has never seen from disease and malnutrition and devastating as example. Millions of impact of global migrants warming are still looking for dry land has changed to pitch their tents forever on. I have heartbreaking losses and to their families in every corner of my livelihood country. gone for long times to come. People in Pakistan, early estimates suggest that more than 13,000 kilometers of metal roads when global warming have been damaged, rips apart, over 370 bridges and an entire country away at a million homes ferocious speed have been destroyed, and why? Another million, and time to damaged. Ask not what can more be than done. A million farm animals must be done, have been killed. 4 million undeniable truth is crops that have been calamity has not been stripping the people of their by anything breadbasket we have done, and damage. Our glaciers are melting unimaginable scale. Our forests are burning, Mr. President, and our heat waves. Pakistan have crossed never 53 degrees Celsius, stark and devastating example, the hottest place of the impact on the planet, of global warming. And now, life in Pakistan has changed. We live forever. An unprecedented monster and spend time. It is literally in every corner a monsoon of my devastated country. As the UN people in Pakistan described it, ask most why. Befittingly, it is why has this steroids. One thing is very clear: when global warming, what happened in Pakistan, whole families stay in Pakistan, and an entire country. As the Secretary General ferocious so candidly says, it is time to ask hotspots why, like Pakistan, and time to ask not in the what can be done. Climate but vulnerable must be done. Countries, but amid undeniable less than 1% that this calamity has the greenhouse gases that are burning our planet. Done. It is therefore entirely are melting reasonable to expect our forests are burning approximation and our heat of justice. For this have crossed 53 and damaged degrees Celsius. Not to mention building back the hottest place better on the planet, resilience and now strength. Mr. President, clearly the time now for talk about live through action is past. Unprecedented. At this point, I am profoundly grateful. It is literally that the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited Pakistan as the UN spent time with described climate refugees, with mothers and children on in the tents. And one thing is very clear, assured us of his support. What happened in Pakistan will at this point, I want to thank each and every Secretary General, one of the countries so candidly that have sent help to Pakistan, like Pakistan, and their representatives in the Pakistan climate vulnerable solidarity list of countries with us in our most less than 1%. On behalf of my nation, of the greenhouse, I once again express that our burning, sincerest our planet appreciation. It is therefore entirely reasonable to expect the impacts on the health and wealth of justice my country for this are lost beyond and calculation. Not to mention at this point, building back real worry is about the next stage of this challenge. Clearly, the time for talk about action has would have gone. At this point, I am profoundly grateful that the UN Secretary General August Assembly Guterres and the story just Pakistan shifts away to conflicts time with like the Ukraine climate refugees. My question with mothers and children in the tents be left alone and repeatedly assured us of his support to cope with the crisis and assistance which we did at this not point create. I want to not thank of our doing each and every one of the countries where from and how to begin with sent help to rehabilitate and their representatives after the rescue and relief effort to stand in solidarity with us 12 long weeks trying for many of the lives on behalf of we have saved nation. The future I once again express by new my sincerest appreciation to all of them livelihoods, the impacts on the health lands and wealth permanent of my country, insecurity and beyond calculation to at this uncertain futures. So my real worry is 11 million people will be pushed of this further below the poverty line. When the cameras, while others will drift, would have gone to cramped urban shelters, leaving little room for climate. This smart rebuilding August Assembly, Mr. President, and the story just for now shifts away. We have mobilized like the Ukraine. All available resources at our domain will be left alone, squeezing high resources from left and right to cope with the crisis towards the national which we did not relief effort, not of our doing, repurposed all budget priorities, where from and how to begin with development funds to rehabilitate to the rescue and first order needs after the rescue and relief effort, which is still going on for the most effective 12 long weeks, 4 million for many women, of the lives heads of household that began weeks ago by new fragility. Our social security program decimated the Benazir livelihoods, support program reduced croplands. It has been established permanent food in the name of insecurity. Former late Prime Minister to Benazir Bhutto, uncertain futures, and her son 11 million people will be pushed further below the poverty line. 70 billion others will drift to cram or almost $300 million leaving from our own pocket for climate. We are spending on this rebuilding. But at this point, the gap between our urgent mobilized and available resources is increasing by the day and amplified by the sheer from unprecedented scale of towards the national relief manpower and resources repurposed are all budget priorities and including development funds to raise here to the rescue is quite simple. First order needs why are of my people paying the price of such to the most high global 4 million women fault of ours. Heads of household we have no contribution had begun weeks ago. Nature has unleashed her fury on Pakistan without looking into support at our carbon footprint. It has been established next to nothing in the name of our actions. Former late Prime Minister contribute to this. Bhutto. The dual cost of and global inaction and climate injustice are having a crippling effect on both our 70 billion rupees and our people. Right here, almost $300 million over there from our own pocket. We are spending on Mr. President. But at this point, the gap between our urgent needs and available trying circumstances is increasing by the day, enemy of and darkness, amplified by the sheer unprecedented and scale of this disaster to be our manpower, resilient resources. People are totally. For my part, I am fully committed, fully geared to fighting to raise battle for our survival. Is quite simple. In the tents, why in the trenches, with my people, until we have rebuilt such Pakistan, high global, to face the growing challenges of no fault of ours. It is high time we took a pause. Nature has unleashed her fury on Pakistan without return to the challenges at our carbon footprint, which the entire definition of national security did not contribute to this. And the dual cost of global inaction, unless and climate the leaders of the world are having together crippling to affect on both our treasury and our people common agenda right now. There will be no earth to fight wars over. Mr. President, nature will be fighting. This is going to be a long and for that, humanity is no match at all. Most trying circumstances, hope is the best enemy of darkness. Pakistan's and Pakistanis are known right to now be exceptionally to ensure resilient, rapid economic growth. For my part, I am fully committed, fully geared to fighting hunger. This battle for our survival any such in the tents, momentum in the trenches Pakistan with my people until we have rebuilt Pakistan we look to face the growing challenges with all our neighbors century, including India. It is high time we sustainable peace and the stability in South Asia. The 20th century remains to return to the challenges of the 21st century and lasting the entire definition of Jammu and Kashmir national security has changed today. At the heart of this long-standing dispute lies the denial of the leaders of the world right come together to act to self-act determination on an India's common agenda and unilateral no earth to fight wars over. 2019, nature will be fighting to change the international for that humanity is no match at status of Jammu and Kashmir and to alter the demographic structure of the occupied territory. Pakistan's urgent priority, the prospects right now and inflame regional economic growth. India's millions out of campaign of poverty and hunger against to enable any such policy momentum in Pakistan needs and intensity external environment. In pursuit of this, we look for heinous goal with all our neighbors ramped up, including military deployments, sustainable occupied Jammu and stability in South 900,000 troops. However, thus making it contingent upon the most militarized zone in the world of the Jammu and Kashmir. Brutalization of Kashmiris. At the heart of this takes long-standing dispute, extrajudicial killings, the denial of the inalienable right of the Kashmiri torture and death to self-determination, use of India's deliberate targeting of Kashmiri unilateral actions of pellet guns and collective punishments imposed on the international community, recognized the classic status of Jammu and Kashmir project, and to alter the demographic to turn the Muslim majority of the Jammu occupied territory into a Hindu undermined territory. The prospects of illegal demographic changes, regional tensions, millions of fake India's domicile certificates campaign have been issued to non-Kashmiris. Kashmiris land and to grow are being seized and intensely. Electoral districts have been this gerrymandered goal, and over New Delhi has ramped up its military deployment illegal occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Voters to 900,000 registered, thus making it the most blatant violation of the most militarized zone in the world, and the serial law brutalization of Kashmiris Geneva many forms. For our part, judicial killings, the Pakistani people incarceration have always stood by our torture and death and sisters in this complete use of force and deliberate targeting of Kashmiri youth with pellet no matter what, and until their right punishment determination entire is fully realized in accordance with the relevant UN Colonial Council India is seeking to turn the Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir August platform into a Hindu territory in Pakistan illegal demographic changes commitment to millions of fake South Asia domicile India must take credible steps to non-Kashmiris enabling Kashmiri land and properties are being seized. Electoral districts have been gerrymandered. The choice is 2.5 million whether we live in Kashmiri illegal or keep on fighting with each other. Voters fraudulently registered from 1947 blatant violation of and security as a consequence resolutions and only miseries, particularly unemployment, Geneva Convention. For our part, on both sides, the Pakistani people now up to us have always stood by our Kashmiri brothers and sisters in complete solidarity. Our problems continue to do so, no matter what, until their right peaceful self-determination is fully realized in accordance with the relevant UN Security Council our resolutions. Resources. I show the World Forum for and this promoting education and health that we in Pakistan remain consistent to in our commitment millions to of people in South Asia. Boys and girls, India must take credible steps to create and not enabling waste our resources for constructive engagement. Buying more ammunition. We are neighbors and trying to forever. The choices are in this area whether I think it's high time that or India fighting understands this message. We have had loud and clear that both from 1947 onwards